This meeting, please in order. Everyone, please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Okay, moving right along. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. So I will entertain a motion from a board member regarding approval or not of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Thank you. Is there any discussion regarding the agenda? Hearing none, then all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. And next, public comments on agenda items. We have a list. And also welcome everybody to this board meeting. Much. We have one person that wants to speak, and that's Dr. O'Hare.
When we're done.
You what?
When we're done.
When we're done. Okay, thank you. That was the question. Okay. Our next item is board member comments. Before we do that, just want to announce that Laura Vogt will not be here tonight. She is formally excused. In any case, board member comments will start with.
Oh. We've just been battling flu and everything in our house, and but our DI team, the Destination Imagination, finished. It was all done, and they got to do. They were over at Clahalian and did the presentation, and I had rushed from work and just got. Or no, it wasn't work. It was Saturday. Basket thing I do. Rushed there and got there right at the end of their actual presentation. And I was just like, I cried later. It was so sad, but I got to see it's called the Instant Challenge, and they build little things that they had to put little balls on top of big balls and use very minimal resources to do it. And it was so wonderful watching them do it. And I was sad I didn't get to see the whole beginning part, but they were a wonderful group. I will definitely do it next year. So, yeah.
Okay, I will be next. As most of you know, I have been medically challenged lately. And today, I got to take this off for the first time in 5 weeks. And I will be using it for the next week at certain times, like when I leave and when I'm at work, just to remind me not to use this right arm for a while. I'm limited to 1 pound at this point for the next block of time. But then physical therapy and stuff, and it's going to come back. And they told me, however, don't even think about playing basketball for 5 months, maybe a year, and that hurts. Anyway, but also, and I wanted to announce for your sake and your folks' sake, the other medical problem that I have, which Laura says always too much information. I won't give you very much information except to tell you that I don't have to have the next surgery. And I learned all this today, both things today, so I'm real happy about that. I'm really jazzed. Anyway, so enough on that, just on the school stuff side. I did have to miss 1 Builders Club meeting, which is what I volunteer at for illustration, and I have to thank Dr. O'Hare for covering for me at that meeting and for helping me in the other ones since then. But I have been able to make them, and that's my personal passion with kids. Otherwise, I've kind of been. I have to miss a couple more meetings, but I've been kind of out of it. But now it's time to get back into it, and I'm jazzed. Okay.
Most of mine have been Friday conferences on conference call with other legislative reps from around the state, and I don't know if we did much good, but we tried to pressure legislators to pass a budget, and some parts of it look good and others don't. It does not look at this time that there's going to be any master solution coming out of the legislature. So stay tuned. We have updated this on the web, so you guys can see the benefit of the weekly updates from the legislature that we get from WASDA on the progress of certain bills, the non-progress of others, and areas where we need to focus. It was my privilege last week to attend Kathy Kopp's class with the senior presentations, and the students discussed the competition, and it's always interesting to discuss competition with those who will be our rulers in very few years, should they happen to vote. And the other thing I did, Ken was very interested in some, Ken Van Buster, our colleague, friend, was interested in some things relating to the Jindelheim property, and we went out and he gave me a tour on a week before Thursday, and it was very good. It was raining cats and dogs, but we had a very good time, and we're soaked, and I was both soaked and informed. And I was crossing the street from the Schindelheim property over to Fellow, and he offered to drive me across because it was quite hot traffic. I said, that's not necessary. Again, should I be hit? Anyway, would know whose responsibility that is. So it's a good way to do it. That was a bad joke. So anyway, that's basically what I have to report, rather than the usual range of computer difficulties. And Joanne, if you would be so kind, I have the budget, I have the agenda for last December, but I don't seem to have the one for today.
I don't know how to quite follow that with the whole road joke, but it's been kind of exciting for us. We've been kind of dealing with the illness, and my 2-year-old grandson is just kind of starting to blossom, and we've been teaching him his colors and working with him. And this last week, Dan and I have been really busy, so we haven't been watching the news like we should. And I was not aware of the gigantic storm that was raging at the coast. So we thought we'd just go to Astoria. And I drove over the bridge, and it was an experience I will never forget. And then having to come back over the bridge, but we took him to Fort Clatsop. We showed him a lot of Lewis and Clark stuff, and he was mildly interested, but it's kind of a building block for us to talk about later and take him back. Remember when you were little, we have pictures. He saw shipwrecks, and it was really pretty exciting. I would have loved to have toured that property, but after getting home from that trip, I was about done. All of us grow at different times, and I am somewhat stubborn, and my husband told me while we were driving home, I was driving the truck, he says, stop, and I'm like, I'm gonna stop. And then I see why, and there's this tree, which just like fell right in front of the road. And if it had hit us, it was pretty big, it would have been pretty ugly. So I guess we all kind of grow at different places, and it's been a big growing week for me. So, but as far as schools go, I've been watching a lot of things and keeping up with the kids and watching on Facebook, and I'm just really proud of them. I can't say that one thing stands out more than the others, but I'm really impressed with our last meeting when they came and spoke, and they ended up getting something that they desired because they presented it, and I'm really proud of our students, and I think we're headed in the right direction, so. No bad jokes, I'll leave it there.
Come on. Thank you. Okay, then, next is your student board member comments.
We've been pretty busy planning the mock car crash and progressing with that. We got all of our students interviewed and selected, and so that was a pretty major part of it. We had a parent meeting Monday. It was Monday. And so that is just one step closer. And we're doing a public appreciation, or we like to pick a person out of the community and show them that we appreciate them and surprise them with a nice little, not a peace offering.
That's what it is.
An award, yeah.
Yeah.
But, and so last month, or the month before, we did Craig Caddy, because he helped us with the new school. And I don't want to reveal this coming Monday's recipients, but I think it's going to be really good.
I think it was really cool, and he didn't share, but last month they tricked Craig, so he didn't know what he was coming up to get, to find out. So that was a really fun part of that day.
So that's pretty much what I've been up to.
Thank you. Okay, we are now at the consent agenda time. So I will entertain a motion from board member regarding the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the consent agenda as given.
Okay, take for the motion. Is there any discussion? And this is the time for board members, this is our chance to change things, do whatever we want, pull something out if we can, or that kind of stuff. But this is where, this is one of the few motions where it's worth having lots of discussion if you feel needful. Anybody feel needful?
I tried to find the thing.
Hearing none, then, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we have completed the consent agenda. Now move down to superintendent's update.
Thank you. I'm going to start by asking our project manager, Eric Nelson, to come up and talk to us about a couple of things. We have 2 proposals in the, that are action items, the new stadium, and also moving the Belfair Elementary, moving the remaining 2 high school portables that are next to the annex over to Belfair Elementary to help us with some class size reduction in the coming year.
Rob?
Hello, how are you today? Like Dan said, there's 2, the first proposal is an architectural services proposal from Erickson Dunham Architects to cover the design for the new stadium. It's, the costs are in line with the same budgetary reviews that we've gone through before on all the other projects. It's a full design, including all the sub-tier consultants, including the landscaping and civil, electrical, and mechanical, along with some, obviously, some of the architectural services. Remember, I believe it's right at $451,000 total. So recommend that we go forward with that so we can get that. We're getting close to that final domino of this whole long string of things, and that's it. So we want to make sure we get going on that. The schedule right now would be to get approval, go through and complete the design work going through this year and have things ready to go during the late winter, early spring of next year, with construction going through the spring, summer, and have it ready for football season 2027. That's why I'm backing up, because for some reason I missed a year I've been on here. So that's the game plan with that one. The second one was a bid that we went out through the Small Works roster to obtain pricing to relocate and do site prep for the last 2 portals that we have that are up here next to the annex. We received one bid out of the, I think there was, I turned the total number that was put out to the Small Works roster. And our intention was to get it out and get it approved because we have a small window that we need to try to hit to have these portables moved off site, because as part of the phase 2 work for the middle school, the whole parking lot, including that end of it, the portables are sitting on this work on. So the trick to that is, and this is what we ran into over a year ago when we were kind of talking about moving the portables, if we don't get in line early, you can imagine the number of portables that get moved around the state of Washington between the months of, June and September 1st. So by approving this, we get the contract out and we secure our place in line to make sure that those dates get hit. So I think the total was right at $375,000. The cost for doing the portables over at Sand Hill was $250,000 total for those 2, but we have a number of different issues that we deal with down here. One is we're also removing the portable. We have access. It's not as easy as just driving along a straight road and putting them down the ground. We have to actually tow them up the hill, get them around back. There's some other site issues that we're going to take care of at that time, including repairs to the fence and other things like that. So that's those 2 items that we had out there. And I'm here to answer any other quick questions you may have on anything you got.
So did you have any bids that were even close to what we ended up with?
Well, and like I said, I think looking back and comparing to the other one, because the 2, if you just had just the portable portion itself, I figured that was roughly $250,000. A lot of that is electrical, because we have to redo all the fire alarms, we have to redo the services to them, all the data wiring's all new, and so there's a lot of that. So we looked back at it and pulled out that extra $125,000 that was there. we start looking at, okay, so removal of the portable is going to be so much, the building of the access and securing the access up and down the hill. So when we started adding to it, we felt confident that the number fell within what we believed was going to be an accurate number. And the ones that we moved, actually, it ended up being the same contractor that we had doing the ones over at Sand Hill. And it's one that we've actually had some pretty good success. He's also the one who's putting together the project over here for PACE. So we've been happy with their attitude towards the work. And this job's obviously been a little bit challenged because of the weather. It's been slightly wetter around here the last eon.
It's just difficult for people to believe that moving a couple of portables will cost as much as it does. You seem to be a very credible and nice man. but
Yeah,
if you don't want-
well, like I said, it is, when you look at, when you start breaking down the elements of it, it does seem to be expensive. Like I said, most of the things, because of how much electrical work, I mean, we're putting in a new service from the pole out to, it's similar to what we would have had behind the high school here. It's one panel, then you do the distribution. And then it's the data wiring. You know, the wire itself is fairly inexpensive, but of course, trying to get it from the inside of, let's see, the rooms right outside the front desk at Belfair, down the building, out the building, back towards the hills to the portable. So there's a lot of trenching and things like that. You know, and again, the replacement of the fire alarm portion of it is inexpensive. That's a required upgrade because of the age of the portables. When we start looking at the cost of portables, everybody says, well, it's X number of dollars for a portable. Well, that's typically the portable sitting somewhere not where you want it. You know, there's the cost of bringing it in and setting it, and that part kind of sometimes gets kind of lost in all those numbers when salesmen start throwing them out. So looking, again, compared to what we had, when we start looking at the amount of work, the concrete work and all that going around, we feel secure that the prices are accurate.
Is there something that's gonna last beyond the life of the portable? So as far as like all the electricity and stuff that you're bringing out there, if we were to build something permanent there, we'd be kind of good to go? So it's not really a portable cost, it's more of just the construction cost?
Well, let me do the worst case scenario. If there was ever a problem with a portable, all the infrastructure's there. You could remove one and place
Then we
it.
wouldn't have to go to that big expense again, we're done with that part.
Exactly. And again, the way they're set up is also has some expansion allowed to it, so if there was an instance where maybe another one had to go back there, the panel is large enough to handle another 200 amps off of it for another building, and everything's right there, rather than having to go back and reinvent the whole wheel. Now we gotta run it. Since there's one doing, now we have the conduit, we do have the stretching in
So
process.
as expensive as it is, we do have some kind of, I mean, you can kind of separate out, this is for this project, this is for
Yes.
stuff till later.
Yes, and when you look at it for site-built buildings or anything like that, it is less expensive in the long run. And again, you're also thinking about, you've already, I'm trying to remember, I think those portables, I'll say were late 80s, early 90s, and actually all four of them are still in pretty good shape. So you've got an asset that you've already paid for. We're just relocating so you can use it again for as many years as you want. And we're going to do some, and we said we're also going to replace the carpet and it'll be cleaned inside, so it'll look and feel like a new building.
Okay, I have a quick question and then a short comment. The quick question is, I think this is the case, but are we not using the two portables currently for anything at all?
Now, at this point, no. When the high school got built, all the four portables that were on site and the annex were all essentially taking those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 structures and put them all now in the high school. So what that obviously does do is it frees up for the Hawkins renovation for one, district office renovation for the second, and then now you've opened up those 4 classrooms to be used
I
elsewhere.
was wondering if maybe there was some storage going on there.
Yeah, they're not everything yet. They moved out. We have maybe some desks left, but they're pretty empty. I hope so, because when the PUD came out here to disconnect the other two, they blew on the site. They disconnected some portables and they took off, and then we had to call them back and say we get the wrong two here, the wrong two over here. So they were back that afternoon. So.
And my comment is, I have one comment from the public about this, and I'll have to use the same comment. When they're gone, we're going to finally be able to see the high school from our regular parking lot.
It's unfortunate that we did take the two away from the front of the old high school, because now you can really see a whole bunch of things. But again, with those two being gone as well, and with the eventual, say the demise of Hawkins in about a year or so, you're going to get a whole different view of what you're seeing.
And I'm looking forward to
See what that is, yes.
Okay, and I think this is an action item. So I will entertain a motion from a board member. We can do it together or separate or however you want. Whoever takes the motion says I can.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the items for the capital projects, the new stadium proposal, and the Belfair Elementary portable move proposal, with the explanation that our person on the spot is giving us.
As they exist currently.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, and we have passed those two items. Excellent. Back to the superintendent.
The next thing I have to share, I included a copy of the closing letter from our alternate learning experiences program review that we had just earlier. It was a desk audit, so that's where Anne had to collect thousands and thousands of pages of material and mail them off to OSPI, and they would ask questions and review things. And so we did get a recommendation in the audit. It's not called a finding, but we did get we'd like you to do things in a different way now. It was very frustrating for Anne because we've been following all the rules that they told us to follow for the last 6 months ago, but you know how it is. And so it was really that additional detail included in the formal learning plan that we file for each student who's an alternative learning student. Not that we didn't have that information in the students' folders, but we just didn't have it on that document. So now that we had made that transition actually at the beginning of this school year. So we were doing that on this year's documents, but not on last year's that they looked at. So overall, it was a very positive review. We got strong compliments for how effective the people in our program are, and our kids are working hard. So that was a good thing.
Thank you.
And next is our budget updates.
Top of the evening to you. Just wanted to say that really bad. So I've actually given you the budget report, just kind of in a written form, and then our financial statements from our financial system. I'll just kind of recap. It's actually, things are going real well. So this month, we're looking back at February, and we're about $500,000 down from expenditures same time last year, and from budget. And we have a little less revenues coming in from budget, but since the expenditures are so much lower, it's evened out, so it looks really good. We're doing really well. And our fund balance is sitting at about $1,365,000, and that's about $175,000 higher than last year. So the fund balance is healthy and looking good. And when we look at our other fund balance, that was our general fund. Capital projects, we're still on track, still collecting some state match money from the high school. We have a little bit of that left to collect. And probably in a couple months, we'll start collecting some state match for the new middle school. With the state match, you have to spend it first. And then once you spend your portion, they'll start reimbursing you for that portion. So we'll have some revenue coming in there. Debt service and ASB are sitting nicely. And then transportation fund, we are actually working with a vendor to purchase a new bus because we have enough money to purchase a bus. Once this year is over, we should get some more money, and then maybe the next year we'll purchase another bus, or maybe in the middle of the next year. And then enrollment. Enrollment is kind of exciting news. Enrollment is actually, we're down like 0.01 of a student from last month to this month. So we've really stayed steady, and the average trend in the past 5 years is to be down about 5 to 10 children between February and March. So we've stayed steady. So that's great news. And typically from this point forward, we decline a little bit till the end of the year. And I'm hoping that we stay the same. It looks like we've gone up every month except for January. So things are looking really good in that department. And January is usually the time, I think we talked about where people would maybe leave if it's right after December break. So that's looking really good. And I think we're pretty much on track for what we have projected for next year. We haven't finalized that, but we were kind of waiting for a few more months to come in. And that's all that I have. Do you have any questions for me?
How come we're doing so much better? 500, is this 500,000 less expenditure? How
Well-
come? Careful budgeting or?
Well, sometimes we are watching what we're spending, and sometimes it's just based on budget, which is historically, you know, what percentage, you know, you look back and you say what percentage of your full expenditures or your full budget did you spend every year. So it's kind of a formula that you get that might not be actual, and sometimes it depends upon when, maybe in the previous years, some bigger expenditures were in one month than this month. But I think we've been sitting really nice. I think we've worked really hard to inform the schools and principals and administrators what they have in their budget and what is available to spend. I think we've been very transparent with, this is where you're at, we need you to watch this, and we need you to know this is all you have. So I hope that some of that is helpful, but it's probably too early to say right now. We'll see how we end the year, and then I'll take all the credit for it.
All right.
So following up with that, one thing that Kathy shared that I wanted to highlight is that we received part of the dollars that Washington State received as grant funds for the National School Lunch Program Equipment Assistance. So in our district, that meant we received a couple of things. We got 2 stainless steel mobile steam tables for Belfair Elementary. With the increase in breakfast and lunch participants, this allows Belfair to increase their serving capacity so students can get through the lines quicker, and giving them more time to eat their meals before they get to class. More food choices can also be offered. The value for both of those was $12,000. And then in addition, we received through the grant a ventless corner tall dishwasher to replace the 17-year-old dishwasher currently in service at Belfair Elementary. Our current one is so old that parts can't be found and it continuously breaks down. So this dishwasher will be installed in the summer, and it has a value of $28,400, so you did pretty well on it.
Imagine being without a dishwasher with all those dishes.
No, and they don't even use
I'm a
dishes.
$38,000 dishwasher. If anyone come get my plate from me. No, those are awesome.
So next up, we have the updates on Feller and Schimmelheim property. So I'm going to start with Feller because there's more to do on that, so there's a little less to report right now. But at our study session, you gave me some homework, and I'm working on my homework. So I am trying to develop a relationship with one or more higher education schools to see if we can develop some kind of partnership to highlight and bring the classrooms really forward again. And I hope to have some more information for that, maybe by the April meeting or definitely by May. And maybe in April or May, we will also be ready to have another study session and talk about what information that we have. In addition, I've been working with a couple of different federal and state agencies to talk about what are the possibilities for the wetlands, for supporting those, maybe having one of those agencies support those for the use of our community. We really don't have anything tangible to report at this time, just a lot of conversation. But again, hope to have more in the next month or two so that we can have a really valid and worthwhile discussion. So the next thing I want to talk about is the Schimmelheim property. You saw a presentation last month, and you've been receiving some information. Earlier today, I did forward you some information or later this afternoon for Mr. Van Buskirk. He wanted to register a concern that he had identified that in the early 2000s, I believe, about 2003, 2004, the Salmon Center, on behalf of themselves and the district, did some work with the EPA. And he had identified some work also with the Department of Ecology, but I did some research and we had a grant with EPA, or actually a Salmon Center, or the canal, whatever, I forget what it was called then since I wasn't here, but anyway. And that was a brownfield grant, which is a cleanup for where there have been things that could be contaminating the soil.
What did you call the grant?
Brownfield. Okay. And so the EPA grant was closed out in 2008 as completed. The Salmon Center folks had, with that grant, contracted with people who do cleanup, and they had identified 5 potential tanks or sites that there had been a car repair business on one side of the street and a gas station on the other. They found that 3 of those sites ended up being metal debris that was in the ground. There were 2 tanks that were removed. Those were both removed on the Schindlheim property. At the end of that grant, when they did what they set a number of wells to monitor what was going on, and is the soil okay? It did determine that the soil had a little bit higher level of arsenic than normal, but they did their due diligence and found that throughout the Puget Sound region and Western Washington, that is the case. And in fact, the numbers that were measured there at our site here in Belfair were significantly lower than those same high, although high numbers, significantly lower than in throughout the Puget Sound in Seattle and other places. So they shared that information with the EPA. The EPA found that that could be naturally occurring, at least in our part of the country, and closed out that grant. At the same time, the way I understand it, they, Salmon Center folks, and the people that they were working with to do the cleanup, signed them up for a voluntary cleanup with the Department of Ecology. And I think that is something that, the way I understand it, and I know Lindy's here, and if you have more questions, we can get her to respond to those potentially. But basically what happens with those voluntary programs is you do it or you don't, and you report or you don't. It kind of fell, the Department of Ecology thing, the way I understand it, kind of fell by the wayside because they got signed off by the EPA. And so it just didn't get followed up on, and so eventually got to the 10 years and got dropped. So I thought that was important information for you to have. And I'm not sure that I see that it impacts any decisions that we would make in the future about that site. As you know, it's been in the newspaper. The Port of Allen met, gosh, was it only a week ago? It seems like a little bit longer. The Port of Allen commissioners met and determined that they voted and would be willing to accept a transfer of the sponsorship of the grant, the acquisition grant that we used to purchase the Schindlheim property. So what we would need to do would need to put that on our agenda and discuss and potentially vote to transfer the sponsorship of that grant. And then both agencies write a letter to the RCO saying that, yes, we are happy to transfer the grant, yes, we are happy to be the recipient of the transferred grant, and that transfers that sponsorship and that property's responsibilities. Because this is a transfer, even though it's a transfer of an acquisition grant, it is effectively a transfer of a piece of property. We have to consider that there's not a requirement, but it's good practice for us to declare that property surplus to the district as well. In this case, to do that is different than when it's a property on which we've had classrooms that we've been using, whether that we've been using Beller, or if we were going to surplus, like when we surplused Hawkins because we're the annex. It's different. And because it's transferring the property from one governmental agency to the other, the requirements of doing that kind of a surplus are much less. And simply stated, what they are is that you need to give public notice of 10 days before the meeting at which you are going to discuss and potentially vote to do that. So we could do both things at one meeting if that's what the board determined they wanted to do. That's
So,
kind of
you open for questions?
I am.
Okay. Is the Port of, are there friends of the Port of Allen aware of the history of this place?
Of the Brown?
Yeah, of
thing?
the top of the.
I haven't talked
Okay.
to them this week, but I believe they are aware of that. By word of mouth that this person said this, but I haven't specifically spoken to Larry about it yet at this point.
You're satisfied there's no outstanding grant obligations on our part?
No, I've spoken repeatedly with both the director of the RCO and the compliance officer, Myra Barker, and both have stated that our obligations under this grant were to purchase the property and to post signs crediting the agency, Aaliyah and RCO, with giving us the money to do so. Those were the obligations for the grant, and there are no other obligations for the district with this particular grant, unlike the other grants that we have in Beller that are much more complicated.
I guess this might be kind of a silly question. In real estate, we transfer title of property from one owner to the other, and we go through everything, and if there's liens, mechanics liens, things they didn't even know about, we make sure that's cleared before it moves on. Are we gonna have this cleared so there's absolutely no liability of any kind on us before it's transferred to a different entity?
Yeah, we'll have our lawyers go over that very carefully, and also RCO is guiding us in this process.
And is there some, I don't understand the urgency. We got an email late last night that I read through with someone that was condemning other community members and being kind of snarky, and I didn't understand the urgency that was being put forward by that individual. Is there some sort of timeline that, could this
Well,
just
I
happen?
can't speak for that person at all. I can only speak for what my perspective is for the school district.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is I know that we've been doing this for 10 years or more, and suddenly it's like, we've got to do it now, it's an emergency, hurry, hurry, hurry. And every time I hear hurry, 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 I wonder, why are we hurrying? If we waited 10 years, what's the sudden rush of urgency? And that person's email really concerned me because they were pushing really hard, and it makes me want to just really investigate more. And it's going to take a lot more now because of that email for me to feel comfortable in going forward. I just thought I would put that out there.
I don't think I got that email, but
Okay.
but I'll imagine.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to draw it out, I'm
So-
just saying that I feel concerned based on that.
No, and I do understand that, but I think that the reason that it's come up to even talk about right now is because we have people in the community, Mindy represents some of them at the Salmon Center, who are interested in developing that property and making that a park that would be available to our children and the rest of the community and tourists and other people. That seems like a good use for that property. The district does not necessarily have any use for that property. And so, from my perspective, the fact that people have an idea of something that would benefit our community makes it worth us talking about it at this
Oh,
point.
absolutely.
Regardless of what personalities and other things are involved.
I have a question. So when the park, the water wheel park, everything is put up, is there going to be Potential for revenue, is there gonna be like they can rent the park or something, or they can, I mean, is there anything that they can make off of it? This is not, I was gonna ask this before too.
I don't know.
Okay. I don't know if that was like in a plan, like they're gonna set it up so they can, it's gonna be big enough for a wedding or, you know,
So
something.
what's 5 acres?
Oh, yeah, I meant like the, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so, and then if they could rent it out, or would they put it out for free, maybe if somebody wanted to have their shindig there, you know, is it gonna be a free thing, or is it something they have to rent, or whatever, possibilities are endless.
They are.
Well, I do want to say that I was very supportive of the presentation we had. I always get concerned when someone puts a rush on something and then starts
I
getting a
understand.
little. I took the email pretty, I found it really concerning. And so it makes me want to do even more research. I just feel like there's something we're missing because this person's pushing so hard. When if we've given it 10 years, why can't we spend a little more time researching and making sure it's good for everybody and we're not doing anything taxpayers would later gasp at?
Well, and that's, I'm not asking that we make any decisions tonight. I'm bringing you up to date on where we are. It is, I think there is the definite potential to have all those answers so that you could make decisions at the next board meeting. I think that having, that's just a piece of property that we're responsible for right now. We have other properties like that we're responsible for. I think being able to look at this one and say, this makes sense, if that's what we decide, to support this park in our community by transferring this to an agency that can really deal with that in a way that we can't, then just kind of takes one other piece off of our pile so that we can take a really good look at the other things that we have to deal with and do our very best to work on.
This isn't something that, this isn't just now coming up, right? It's come up before, but we've been going through so much stuff, Feller and all kinds of stuff, like that it hasn't been able to come to our plate. Is that how it was?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it's been in the making, so it's not just like a,
They've been talking about it
in your
since
face
the
right now.
fall.
Yeah, okay,
Since the autumn.
okay.
And I think, you know, as we heard in Mindy's report last month, various community members have been involved in talking about a project very similar to this for about 10 years ago. They were doing it previously and then stepped away from it, but now folks are coming back to talk about it again.
So would this be Art, would this be a time for a motion if we wanted to instruct the superintendent to set things up for further discussion?
Motion, could be motion. I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, it really doesn't need to be one,
All
but
right.
if we feel like we have enough information, it could be an agenda item at the next meeting. One of the reasons to talk about it at this time is if it's going to be an agenda item at this meeting, this conversation is the first step in making sure that our community is aware of what we're going to talk about, so they have an opportunity to weigh in.
Well, for myself, partly for the reasons Diane has indicated, I think we ought to bring this out on the table. This is something that's come to us. It's an idea that's floating in our community. So let's have a discussion about what it is. And, you know, I could say various things on different sides, why it might be a good deal, this sort of thing, but I think that it would be great to lay it out in front of the community. We're going to have this discussion, talk about this, and then we can see, we can make our own decisions on what we think best for the schools, best for the community, best for education, and move ahead.
Is that enough time for our attorneys to go through it and make sure we got the all clear?
I appreciate your comments about this question. I agree. I would also like to just state from a personal sense or whatever, I would just want to be sure, and this is for you mostly, that we don't have a use for education ourselves, that we have strong plans for it. That really comes from you, since you're the person who hired for innovative education but, yeah, not speaking for the board, I'm speaking
Well,
for me.
I would agree with my colleague. I think that's well said. I mean, the use for education would be a very strong thing, you know, for me. And I've listened to what you say, it makes sense.
Well, and I think, you know, the space as Mindy presented it, that they're going to potentially develop, has a lot of really cool things to help our kids with their
Yeah.
science education, but we don't have to be the ones maintaining it.
Right.
And we can use it.
Yeah.
And that part is very attractive.
Yeah, I like the possibility of other people developing something that we could make use of without any additional charge to our constituents. It's very appealing.
And I didn't lose, I don't think it's I mean, it's thoughts right now, but I don't think we lose educational use of it. I think that's, well,
So do you have enough from us at this point?
I do, so
Okay.
I'll gather more information for you and we'll talk about whether it becomes an agenda item.
Is it possible if we do have an event at school, we're maybe to give maybe 20 minutes at the beginning of our meeting for, because the community's not supposed to dialogue during our meeting, but maybe set aside some time where we can dialogue or talk or listen to what they have to say, pro, con, whatever. I just want it to be really open.
We could maybe do a short study session prior to opening the meeting, so that, and make that one like we did the last one, that the community has an opportunity to voice.
Yeah, yeah, whatever they, yeah, I just want to hear from them and whatever it is, I want to hear it.
maybe open the 3-minute mark, you know, open it up to 4 times. Just kidding. Yeah, I really like this.
Well, why don't I work on a format for that, so that we can maybe start with the study session.
And that way they're up to speed and then they can come comment, pro, con, whatever they want.
Sure.
Okay.
Is that the end of your?
That is the end of that part where on community linkage.
So that's the standard community linkage plan. This is the standard thing we always have there. And you later the point for the board members here. Upcoming North Mason Rising Column. Looks like due this month, March 28th. Wow.
But you have it ready to send.
I've all done. I just need-
First, wow.
I just need the final dates because we're trying to reschedule because there's some conflicts. And then once we lock down location, then we send them.
So you're aware that we would like to have it by March 28th?
Yeah. Yeah, I sent the suggested dates to the representative from the other side of the program, and she's gonna get back to me in the next day. Well, maybe Monday or Tuesday.
Great. Wow. First for us.
They make us look bad.
Way to go.
You're setting a high bar.
And then after that, due on May 2nd, John is Richard.
Yeah,
Due
right.
on May 30th would be Leanne.
I'm gonna have Dave write my paper. You write my paper?
Okay. Our next item is the right response advanced certification. Anything you want to mention about that?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. We got a letter of commendation from our insurer, Clear Risk Solutions, used to be called Hanfield and Associates. They've changed their name, for the proactive approach that North Mason School District has taken to make our schools a safe place for students, staff, and visitors by ensuring that the appropriate staff have received the right response training, which is a proactive and holistic approach to when anyone, student or adult, has lost control of themselves physically and emotionally and are potentially physically dangerous. The correct way to de-escalate them, and only if necessary, the correct way to restrain someone. So we're really pleased that we have had so many of our staff members take part, and all of those people who are identified who would potentially be closest in those situations. And very proud of getting that commendation from them, so sure.
Yeah.
So moving on, our next task is monitoring reports, and we have none scheduled for this board meeting. No new ones. Last meeting, we went through the ER 12 and ER 9, and we did do not indicate a need to revise those policies. Is that changed? Any comments or wanted to bring that one back up about those two policies? No, then I'll just bring up a short thing, not about those two, but several months ago, we were looking at, I forget how this YouTube maybe what it was, and we kind of haven't done anything further with that, and I just don't want to forget that we were looking at possibly having a little study session of our own, so that we could flesh out maybe some substantive changes that we all agree on before time. And then I had some thoughts about how to different directions to go. And I would still like to do that. I don't feel for an urgent crisis that we have to do it right away. But I don't want to forget. To me, this is our meat and potatoes of what we do is these policies. And I just think directions, not just for us, but for us as well as the whole country is changing in looking at education. It's time, I think it's time for us to be getting the changes that work for us better. So just want to keep that in mind, and of course we'll have a chance to talk about agendas as the weeks go by.
Well, and that's also, I sent you guys in my Friday update, an article this week on the way that in one school system that they're looking at measuring student success differently, and it's a more holistic approach. And so I sent you that article to kind of follow up with that, so that those are the kinds of ideas we might talk about when we have the opportunity to do that.
I read the article, I didn't click, that was the connection. Thank you. Okay, wow, we're going pretty fast for us.
Yeah.
So we are now at item 5, which is the adjournment phase of this board meeting. So at this point, it's time for announcements and comments from the public. We have Don LaFair, Dr. Don LaFair has signed up and he would ask us to wait till now.
Just for everybody else, if they are interested, when Art is helping with the Voters Club meetings, they have 20 minutes to pull off a meeting. It's pretty amazing to actually get anything done in that time period, especially if they're middle school kids, because they all want to talk at the same time. The second thing, Carl Johns was out here to visit, and some of you know, Carl and I did a lot of stuff with theater, and unfortunately he saw the hole in the back of the theater. It was kind of a bummer. I'd like to see what the plans are for the new concession stand, since we're going to be doing that. And I can't speak for Arsenic, but I can tell you the biggest contributor to the recreating environment is volcanoes. And we do happen to be in a volcanic area. And again, it probably was mentioned on the previous movie of the portables, it's not a straight line. It's a really roundabout way to even get them where they're going. You can't just go down Highway 3. You'd think that'd be the simplest thing, but it obviously isn't. So I think that's what I did. It is fun watching those Voters Club meetings. They're a little early in the morning, 7:40 to 8 o'clock, which for me is remarkable. I even make it to any of those, but it really is amazing to watch what they do accomplish in 20 minutes. We could all learn from that.
Okay, if no one else signed up, at this point, you do have a little bit of time. If there's anybody that would like to have 3 minutes to say something, it doesn't have to be agenda related or whatever. If you'd like to, this is your chance. If everybody would like to? Seeing none, then announcements and comments from the board and superintendent.
I wanted, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. You were already going to talk, but I was, just a quick thing. There was a thing on Facebook where they have this thing at the Sandhill, I think the Belford does too, where they have student or teacher appreciation lunch, and they all pitch in money and they all have lunch, but I think the lunch is donated so that all that money goes back to like PTA so that they can pay for supplies for them. And I know that, I mean, they probably have enough money, but I went, well, why don't you put out what you need, you know, here on the Facebook? And it started to become a string of, oh, I've got that, I'll do that, and I've got a bag of the whiteboard markers in my car, and they need whiteboard markers and colored cardstock. They said it's like their biggest things, but it was really cool to see the community like come and do this whole big Facebook string going, oh, I've got those, I can only afford 2, you know, whatever, but, and they needed like 60 pens, but why not, right? And put it out there, and I've been urging Arbogast, Jennifer, to put out more into the community of what they need, and watching, or, and encouraging the community to watch that Facebook site to be able to donate. And it was really cool to see everybody, so come together.
Anyone else?
I just want to reiterate, I enjoyed very much Kim's offer to walk me through the Schindelheim property. I enjoyed it very much. He was a good companion, even in the rain. And I was very impressed with the size of that tree that fell across the creek. And the kind of thing that always happens in the Pacific Northwest. But it was always good to be able to take a walk with someone that knows some things about the woods and can point some things out. So I greatly enjoyed that.
I guess I wanted to mention the passing of our transportation leadership there. We saw his name on the bulletin board at Feller, and it was really touching, and every time I go by, I think of him. And even when the sign comes down, I think every time I go by, I'm going to think of him. And I just thought it was wonderful that remarks that you made, and he's very much appreciated that he's no longer here, and I just felt we should recognize that.
Thank you for bringing that up. He was also a personal friend. I have an employee that works for the Girl Scouts. His best friend is the head mechanic at the bus barn, who of course Tom very, very well. The employee that works for me also Tom, who occasionally goes down with Tom to Oregon to, he's car enthusiast, flea markets or whatever it is and stuff. But again, after Builders Club meetings, oftentimes I would drop down to the bus barn and talk to Tom, both on a personal level, but just because that's how I got to know him, was because he's the fellow I had to get the buses for our field trips. Just what a wonderful man he was. And I'm sure he was.
He truly will be, and he was so special. His celebration of life is on April 2nd at the Assembly of God. For the time, it's 1 o'clock. See you all there. On another note, I would like to let you know that teachers started moving, and staff moving into the James A. Taylor High School this afternoon.
Oh, really?
And classes will take place in the new building on Monday.
Wow.
And staff, myself included, will be cooking a pancake breakfast for students at 8:30 on Wednesday morning if you would like to join us. Very cool.
I know that John and I had a chance to take a tour of the building. Have you had a chance to see it? No? It's fun. Had a chance to look at it.
I'd given up on the idea of a free lunch. This
Free breakfast.
yeah.
Anyone
But
else?
I do encourage you guys, give me a call and we'll go visit. It is so cool. They've been, part of being a truly different and unique place, the architects designed the floor so it looks like a river's running through the building. It's just very cool. So you have to come take a look.
Right, there's this wonderful, for me, a very wonderful optical illusion. When you're in some of the rooms and you're looking, the rooms can be split into 2. The divider is open, so you have 2 doorways close to each other. They're both open, so the divider's not there. But you look out at the hallway, you actually think there is a slope. There's an illusion based on
The flooring.
the floor in the hallway is like a stream of fish going through. There's a wonderful illusion. If you're not paying attention, you actually think. I noticed that because it was still.
I'll bring a marble on my tour just to make sure.
Okay.
Yeah, is there a warning label on the outside, like you have to go?
Well, if one door is closed, you won't get it.
And I think this was really a great thing because I know when I began touring our educational facilities and seeing what was happening, I remember my visit to our alternative high school. That was in portables. I saw what was going on. This really gives alternative education the dignity it deserves. Here is a fine facility that is up to date. It's just as up to date in its way as is our high school. And I think it communicates the message, for part of the reasons that Art has indicated, that this approach, this alternative approach to education is as important as our regular high school, as are the people who take it. They deserve the best, they deserve our education, the best technology, and I think that really affirms that. Because when one went from this facility to the high school, there's a paradigm, there's a difference in place, but they're both on the same level. And I think that's very important. Our students are all different, and here's some folks that have, for various reasons, sought this other path, and I think it's very important to say to them, you are as good as any, even though this is different.
Next one, Sid.
So moving along, board self-assessment of the meeting, and Director Gerke's opportunity. I've always loved how you do it.
Thank you.
There we go.
Okay, so reading the board's meeting tonight, it says the agenda was well planned to focus on the real work of the board. I would say satisfactory. The board followed its agenda, did not allow itself to get sidetracked. I would say satisfactory. The meeting proceeded without interruption or distractions. I kind of want to give us a little star on that one because we're a little ahead of schedule. I'm sure the audience appreciates that. Board members prepared for and contributed to the meeting. Satisfactory. Participation was balanced. All participated, no one dominated. True. The board's deliberations and decision-making process were public. And I think we're doing a lot better with that. I think we're looking for opportunities to bring the public in and really debate what we want to do as a community. And I'm really happy to see that happening. Members listened attentively, avoiding side conversations. Satisfactory. Work was conducted in an atmosphere of trust and openness. Let's say satisfactory. Meeting participants treated each other with respect and courtesy. Let's say that we did that. I don't know if that's because Laura wasn't here or not.
Terrible.
I know, really bad. There you go, yeah. Were these principles, okay. Governance principle review, were these principles followed? I would say yes. Board actions occurred at the policy level rather than the operational level. I would say yes. The board reviews policy about each topic before discussing an issue. Yes. In addition, in writing additional policies, the board starts with a broad statement and becomes more detailed and on logical discipline sequence. I would say yes. The board minimizes time spent monitoring past performance. Yes. The board routinely dedicates time to reviewing and improving its own process. I think that was evident today. Although I do want to note one thing. On the bottom of this, it says the last time we revised it was 2010. So maybe when we do our little study session, if there's any way to make this more relevant to today, maybe we should look at that. So I'm just going to circle the date on the bottom just as a reminder. It's been 6 years-ish. The board clarifies priorities, values, and considering potential outcomes. I'd say yes. The board follows an annual calendar based on a plan of doing its work. Yes. The board chair helps the board efficiently conduct its meeting. Yes, and you get a star today because, again, we're winding up kind of early. The board spends most of its time deliberating issues, defining and clarifying its vision and linking its community as opposed to fixing things. Let's say yes. And the board supports the superintendent in any reasonable interpretation of its policies. And I would say yes. And so overall satisfactory. And the only comment I would make is that it was really great to kind of keep us focused and our time was concentrated, and I think we did a lot of work in a short amount of time.
In future, I would like actual stars.
Thank you, Director Griffey. So our next board meeting date.
Art.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One thing I did forget to mention, that Joan could use some help stuffing Easter eggs for Easter down at the Delaware Center. It requires a little bit more manual dexterity than I have at this time, but
When are you doing that?
anytime
We've been
during
doing
the
it for the
day.
past 2 weeks.
You should have brought
Are you
it
doing
around
it this
early.
We have it on Facebook, the webpage. We
Be
have
ready
it
to
doing it
now
on
on
the
Easter.
on the weekend.
Like this weekend?
We'll do it 1:30 to 3 on Sunday.
1:33 on Sunday.
Great, thank you. So anyway, our next board meeting date will be April 21st, which I'm pretty sure is Thursday. At 6:30, right here. Unless there's anything else. Here with lecture. Oh, thank you.